This award lets me know that
Good morning. Bonjour. Comment ça va? Et toi? Va très bien. Ni hao. Hola. Bienvenue. Anyin. Bienvenidos. Bienvenita. Benvenuta. Namaste. Welcome. Welcome to another exciting episode of Gem Hunter Stories. My name is Barry B. Mixon, and I am a Gemmological Storyteller. And each and every week, I get the magnificent and truly unique opportunity to tell you a story. What I do is I take the art, science, history, and magic, gemstones, precious metals, and fine jewelry, and I put them all together into a story. The whole history of mankind really revolves directly and indirectly to gemstones and fine jewelry. So what I do is I take those gem stories and use them as a template, as an inception point, as a bridge to help people, to empower people, to remind people to take a moment, discover the value of their own stories, how they resonate in the community, in their world, how they interact. I've been studying gemology for 20 years now. In fact, April next month it will be 20 years. I started my first graduating class from GIA, Gemmological Institute of America. I graduated April 2004, and I remember how excited I was just to complete. I was doing Diamond Essentials, first class, Diamond Essentials, just the basic overview of diamond. And I was so excited. And the thing that got me excited about gemology, and still feel even more excited today, is what happens when you begin to study gemology. Gemology is really not even what I thought it was. I mean, I always knew that it was about gemstones and precious metals and fine jewelry, but I never really understood the relationship. Someone asked me a couple of days ago, literally 2 days ago, did I believe in the metaphysical aspects of gemstones? And I told her, once upon a time, I didn't. Once upon a time, I was just the facts, science, and that's it. But as I began to study gemology, I realized that one of the things that gemology does that nobody talks about is how it changes you. You begin to see the world in a completely different way every time you study. I've been studying this for 20 years, and every week, and some of you have experienced that in my excitement or the passion I'm talking about, because it's like you look at something, a concept that explains something, or is this a description of something, or how something happened, or how something got its color or its hardness or its density. And you begin to see how so many of those same characteristics, you can extrapolate that to people. It's really quite amazing to me. And according to a lot of the comments that I've gotten, it's pretty exciting to you as well. So thank you so much for continuing to follow this show. As you can see, this is aquamarine. This is still March, and this is aquamarine, the gemstone for March, the birthstone for March. And as I started to talk about or think about what aquamarine is, I started to think about just the way we approach gemology, how we approach. I'm always reminded of just the way you can look at something and something has value, and then all of a sudden you begin to, as you read into it, you begin to see how you can apply those things to yourself. Even since doing this show, I mean, I'm completely different in so many ways from 20 years ago, but just in the 3 years, almost 6 months, that I've been doing this show, so many things have changed for me. Not that they changed, but the way I look at it has changed. So when I start talking about gemology, as you know, this is the symbol of the gem hunter. Rubies, emeralds, sapphires, citrine, which is quartz, diamonds, and gold. These are the gemstones that have had a significant played a significant part of human history. Rubies, emeralds, sapphires, citrine, quartz, gold, and of course, diamonds. And the thing that I love about gemology is how pure it is. Not so much the substance itself, but just the way we regard gemstones. Because when you look at a gemstone, let's go back to just the very beginning. When you remember back in 7th, 8th grade science, maybe high school, you saw this. You saw the periodic table. And if you noticed in your classroom, it was never two periodic tables. One that said the periodic table of elements for humans and the periodic table for everything else. It was just simply the periodic table. 118 elements. The whole entire universe is made up these elements, from hydrogen all the way to neon. And I'm going to get into a whole chemistry class, but everything in the universe, of the known universe, let me say that, is made out of these elements. So the thing that I love about gemology is before you make any decisions about a gemstone, you have to first ask the question, what is it? What is it? I don't care. There's 4,000 different minerals, about 250 different minerals that we establish or we consider to be gemstones. But the question that you have to ask yourself is, what is it? And that was the first thing that got me thinking about the link between gemstones and people. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we lived in a world where before you made a judgment about someone, you had to first figure out, what is it? What is that person? Who is that person? In gemology, we ask the question, not only what is it? How is it made? What is it made out of? That's the question we have to ask. I can't just look at something and just say it's that. Not as a professional, not as an appraiser, certainly. Because there's so many different treatments. There's so many different imitations. There's so many different gemstones that have similar or sometimes even better colors than what you're looking at. So you have to first figure out, what is it made out of? You have to ask yourself the question, how was it created? How was it created? What format did it take? What environment did it grow in? And what neighborhood did it grow in? Did it grow up in? And because those things are important. Those things are important to establish what is it. And that's what really got me thinking, the whole concept of just how we can look at each other. And we live in a world where we just look at each other and we just decide based on the size, based on the color, based on the gender, based on where you live, based on how tall or short, whatever, what kind of clothes you wear. We don't do that in gemology, not at the professional level. You have to understand what is the story. And I say that every week, and I'm going to keep saying that. I'm just going to say it in different ways. What is the story of that gemstone? And every time I say a gemstone, just extrapolate it and or literally draw a line and just say people. Draw a line and say your cousin, your mother, your father. What is their story? Because only by discovering the story of that gemstone What is that gemstone made out of? Where was it made? How was it made? What do you have to do to get it? That you begin to understand its value. And each week for the last 3.5 years, I've been asking someone, tell me where that's not true. Tell me anything that you like, you appreciate, you love, you hold dear in your life. If I told you or asked you the question, why? You would have to tell me a story. I don't care what it is. If you had this yellow marker, just a regular basic highlighter, and I told you to just take one thing out your house, aliens are coming or troops are coming or whatever, the world is coming to an end, you can only take one small thing with you. And if you came out with this highlighter, a Sharpie highlighter, and I looked at you and said, of all the things you could have taken, why did you take that? You would have to tell me a story. Well, Barry, my mother, my father, my uncle, this was something. And in order for me, you would have to tell me a story in order for me to understand the value of this. Once you told me, oh, well, this was the marker that whoever, Martin Luther King, when he did I Had a Dream, he highlighted the most important parts of the speech with this highlighter, with this little, not that it was probably invented then, but still, my point. You understand my point. This would no longer just be another highlighter. This would be the highlighter that so-and-so owned. In jewelry, it's called Provence. Who owned it before? And then you see the value. So today's show I entitled, A Label Doesn't Mean Anything to a Gemstone. Because a gemstone, when you look at a gemstone, even though that gemstone may have a name, it may have a value to it, in its essence, the label doesn't mean anything to a gemstone. Sometimes I fantasize about living a world where we looked at each other. We lived in a world where the same way we looked at a gemstone, we looked at each other. And it's not even, and because gemstones come in every color of the rainbow, because a gemstone is made up of those same 118 elements, different combinations of those same 118 elements that we are made out of. That's where the connection. A label doesn't mean anything to a gemstone. So when you think about a gemstone, let's go back to the beginning. A gemstone has to have these qualities. It has to be rare. A gemstone has to be beautiful, has beauty. A gemstone has to be durable. You don't want a gemstone made out of talc, like talcum powder. Talc is a mineral. Talc is a mineral, but it's too soft. Look, honey. Oh, wow, it's gone. Talcum powder. And it has to be desirable. People have to want it. And we talked about that with amethyst, how amethyst was once upon a time a cardinal stone. I mean, if you were a king or a queen, pretty much in the whole history of mankind, if you was a king or a queen, you had amethyst. That was a guarantee. The color purple is still considered royalty, the colors of royalty. And I showed you pictures of Queen Elizabeth, and so many monarchs and queens had tons of amethyst. The Greeks, the Romans, the Egyptians had amethyst. So that gemstone has been desirable for thousands of years, but because it's no longer rare, it's rare, but not as rare as diamonds or rubies or emeralds, it lost its value. But let's say it has all those characteristics. It has all those characteristics. What we do as people oftentimes is we decide on something that has color. If it has color, we go, ooh, we like that. Ooh, I think about that woman. Remember the story I told you about the first woman that I ever really saw love jewelry on that level? She said, ooh, I want this. Ooh, I mean, I can still remember it. It was almost X-rated the way she said, ooh. It was like here's air. No, here's air and here's her love of jewelry. Just that close. And get on a given day, she might take the jewelry before she would breathe. She wanted that. She needed it. And everything that she was feeling was based on what she saw, was the color. And we do that. We do that all the time with people. And I'm not talking about just the races and things of this, just the decisions that we make about people, the way they look, their complexion, their skin, the way their skin radiates the sun, all those things. We judge a person, we judge gemstones in very similar ways that we judge people. We just look at the color. So you have a gemstone like an emerald. Emerald is one of the cardinal stones. Someone asked me a few weeks ago, are emeralds more valuable than diamonds? It depends, because it's based on the color. If you have pound for pound, an emerald can beat out a whole lot of diamonds, especially if you have an emerald that is truly transparent, that truly the color radiates through. Oh yeah, highly valued, highly valued. Rubies and emeralds, yes. But if that's what you're judging an emerald on, you're kind of missing the boat. So here's this emerald. I mean, and you see, some of you are drooling right now. Look at this piece. Look at it. Look at the way the color, and emeralds are different than other gemstones. The radiation, the illumination of the gemstone is really almost internal. In fact, the Incas, part of the reason why the Incas didn't want to give up the emeralds, because emeralds for the Incas, their gods were inside. They were living organisms inside of the emerald because of that illumination, way it reacted with the light. He wasn't ready to give that up. Take the gold, all the gold. We don't like it, but take the gold. But the emerald, you're not getting. You're not getting the emerald. When the Spaniards knew, because Cleopatra had emeralds. So Spain and Spaniards knew about emeralds for hundreds of years. But when they came to the New World, when they came to South America and saw the emeralds that the Incas was wearing, they were like, ho, wait a minute. These are emeralds. I don't know what we got at home, but this is 1,000 times better than what we had at home. So when people think about emeralds, that's what they see. But they don't think about that emeralds come from a whole family. Emeralds come from a whole family. And I'm always amazed that not so much people don't know this, but just how it's seen. Work with me. Emeralds is a part of a larger family called beryls. And in the beryls, there are 6 other gemstones. There's aquamarine, heliodor. Aquamarine is blue. Heliodor is yellow. We have morganite, which is pink. We have red beryl. We have some beryls that are black and brown. And then we have goshenite, which is transparent. These are all the beryls. This is part of a family. Of course, we know emeralds. A lot of us know aquamarine, but the rest, not so much. Not so much. And what got me when I started studying, when I started seeing the connection, it was interesting to me because beryls are made up of the exact same thing, the exact same chemical composition, the same molecular structure. Beryllium, aluminum, silicate. That's the chemical formula. Those of you who still enjoy chemistry. That's it. Of those 118 elements, emeralds, beryls, aquamarine, heliodor, morganite, red beryl, goshenite, are all made out of the same molecular structure. That's what beryllium looks like. Beryllium is rare in and of itself. When you use your cell phones and laptops, that's what you're using. You're using beryllium. So beryllium is a very rare metal. Beryllium and aluminum. Beryllium and aluminum. And so the first thing you have to understand, the reason why labels don't mean anything to gemstones is because a gemstone, if a gemstone was alive, a gemstone would appreciate what it is. A gemstone would already understand that it is special because the chances of beryllium and aluminum coming together with a silicate, which is silicon oxide. Silicon oxide, that's pretty ubiquitous. We know we talked about that. Quartz, sand. Well, when you have beryllium and aluminum together in the same place, that's real special. That's a really special and unique thing that happens. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. It happens in different places all over the world, but it happens in different ways in those places. And so that's what you have to understand. That's what a beryl is. Beryllium, aluminum, silicate. And the thing that makes a beryl special, the thing that makes a beryl special is one element, maybe two, but for the most part, one element. So when you look at a emerald, what you're looking at is beryllium, aluminum, silicate in a particular molecular structure. This is not the structure of it, but it's just for argument's sake, a particular molecular structure. And within that molecular structure, there is an element. There is something else that is not usually there. And in this case, and what you see in that beryllium, aluminum silicate, that element that's inside of it, what you see, the color, is the manifestation of that element in that structure. Think about that for a second. Extrapolate that out to people. We are all human beings. Most of us. We are all human beings. Nose, two arms, two legs, the basic structure of a human being. And there is something inside of each and every one of us that even though it's inside of it, it manifests in a different way. We took science in school, doesn't mean that you're George Washington Carver or an Einstein. You took math, doesn't mean that you're, Galileo. It doesn't mean that. That element struck those people in a certain way. Madame Marie Curie. There was something about chemistry and physics that inside of her, there was something inside of her that spoke to her in such a way that what you saw, what manifest, was the manifestation of that thing that was inside of her. Her mother died when she was a kid, and she was very close to her mother. And so her perseverance and strength came from, she lost her mother and her sister, pretty much like in like a 2-year period. And she was devastated. Though that that element was what you saw in who she became. That's because of those elements that was inside of her. So what a gemstone does is shows how is a microcosm of who we are. Because that element that in that emerald, that element that's in that element, that's in that emerald, the beryllium, aluminum, silicate, when you put an element in that structure, the manifestation of that is emerald. When you put chromium, again, another rare metal, not a lot of chromium everywhere. When you put that chromium into beryllium, aluminum, silicate, the structure, that is what creates emerald. It's something on the inside. And that's the thing. That's what got me started on this whole journey with gemology. That it's something on the inside that changes the color, that changes what it is. Think about that for a second. It's the story. I'm sure that a lot of you didn't know Madame Marie Curie. You know, her mother died. Her sister died first, then her mother died. Yeah. And she was totally close. She was really, really close to her sister. And they lived in a boarding house because they had to, actually, you know what? Come to think of it, her sister died first and then her mom died. Yeah. Because they had to, their family was poor. And well, not destitute poor, but they wasn't making money. The father had a hard time getting a job, things like that. So they had to bring in boarders. They had to bring in boarders to share the house. So Madame Marie Curie didn't even have her own room until God knows how old she was, because she always had to share with people. And this is when tuberculosis was going around, and her sister caught tuberculosis and died. And she never got over that. She never got over that. So when you understand her story, then you begin to understand her value. You begin to understand who she is. And we all have heard stories of people who have done tremendous things in their life because they were poor, they were broke, they had to walk across country, whatever. It's a story. And from that story comes the value. You have a greater appreciation for something because you know what it is. The story. Here's an emerald. This is an emerald. When we look at emeralds, this is what an emerald is. This is the thing. This emerald is almost, I think it's $25 million. That emerald, $25 million. So when you are looking at an emerald, you're looking at something that has value, but the thing that we don't really understand is what that emerald really is. What is it? When you just look at the color, you're missing out on something. You're missing the main thing, what makes that really different. You're missing out on what a beryl is. So these are all the beryls. And when we look at green, we idolize green. We make green just this magical thing. But what you don't realize is what an emerald, basically, even though it's beautiful, emeralds are breathtaking gemstones. Spain has never recovered its economy. Spain is still a powerful European country, but part of the reason why Spain lost its way along the way historically is because it loved emeralds. They couldn't get past emeralds. Couldn't get past gold either, but emeralds, oh yeah. These are emeralds. So when you look at someone and you say to someone that someone is an emerald, because that's your stone, you love green, so you make that comparison to emerald, you have to understand what an emerald is. Because it's not as simple as just looking at the color. Not to mention there's a whole lot of green gemstones, but emerald, you automatically attach a value to. Beauty. So of the four elements, rarity, beauty, durability, desirability, you're looking at the beauty. That's the story that you're telling yourself. And as a gemologist, I can't do that. I can't just look at a color of a gemstone and decide its story. I have to know what it is. Where did it come from? So here's the gemstone. You got beauty. What about the rarity? Is it rare? Is it durable? Is it desirable? Yeah. Emeralds are rare. Emerald is a rare gemstone. Emeralds are beautiful, sorry. Emeralds are highly valued. Well, emeralds, durable. When you look at this gemstone, and think, wow, it looks solid. It looks like this strong piece of, it looks like something like kryptonite, just a solid gemstone. Look at it. Beautiful. Beautiful in its structure. And this is the way it looks in nature. It's a breathtaking gemstone. But if you look closely, you'll notice something special about gemstones, about emeralds. Emeralds, this is how you define an emerald. An emerald has cleavage, which means that it can be broken, and it's very imperfect. It's not like a diamond. When you cleave a diamond pretty much breaks evenly. It does. It has perfect cleavage. The emerald, not so much. The emerald has fair stability. It's not a stable gemstone. It's okay. It's not going to just break on you, but it's not a stable gemstone. It has a hardness. The hardness is not bad. 7.5. Not bad out of 10. From 1 to 10, emerald has a barrel, basically has a hardness of 7.5. But the toughness is poor. You can see the chip on that emerald. You can see the cut. Some of you are familiar with gemstones cut. That's an emerald cut. And the reason why it's called an emerald cut is because of the brittleness of that gemstone. Emeralds are very brittle, very brittle. They're not stable. That's why you never, ever, ever put a emerald in a hot bath. You know, you go to those jewelry stores and they're like, hey, you want your jewelry clean? Don't let them do it for an emerald, because most emeralds are treated, and we'll talk about that. These are some of the things. Emeralds have what's called inclusions. They have inclusions. And I said, as a gemologist, I don't make inclusions a bad thing. I want you to understand that inclusions are basically fingerprints, in a sense. They are identifying markers of where that emerald came from. In fact, the way you define a natural emerald is by its inclusions. Almost all emeralds have inclusions. This is a natural emerald. Look at all the things going on inside. Those are inclusions. Still a beautiful stone, but it has inclusions. In gemology, we call those inclusions jardin, which is French for garden. So it is an expectation for emeralds to have inclusions. When I'm looking at an emerald, and if an emerald doesn't have an inclusion in it, natural inclusions or jardin, I already know two things. Either it's synthetic or it's been treated in such a way you can't see the inclusion. And I'm going to let you think about that. We're going to go to break. I'm going to let you think about that for a second, because start to apply that. If you haven't already, start to apply that to people. And we'll talk more about it. We'll get back to the other side. The largest aquamarine in the world is called the Dom Pedro, named after the two emperors of Brazil. It is a 60-pound, 2-foot-long, 10,363 carat obelisk. When they first got it, they didn't know what to do with it. They saw the beauty. They wanted to keep it all intact. So they created a brand new cut called the Fantasy Cut. Something for you to think about when you get dressed in the morning. Discover the value in your story. All right, we're back. So I talked about emeralds, and having emeralds have inclusions. That is an identifying marker of an emerald. And the way I translated that in my head, that's just like many of us who have things going on inside of us of who we are, the way we grew up. A mother, a father, the teachers in school, brothers and sisters. There's things inside of us that make us maybe not as stable as we would like to be, maybe not as confident as we like to be. Maybe we don't like the things going on inside of us, and it affects us. It manifests us in the same way. That's an emerald. And what got me when I started really thinking about it, making that relationship, I started thinking how interesting it is for an emerald to be so highly regarded, and yet an emerald has problems. An emerald has serious problems. It's not a gemstone that you just buy lightly and just say, oh, it's no problem. It's this emerald. You're not going to wear that gemstone in a situation where you're going to hit your hand against a wall or something where it's exposed. You don't, because you already know that it got things going on. These are just some of the inclusions. These are some of the different types of inclusions that happen in an emerald. Mineral inclusions, liquid filled inclusion, meaning like you got little, excuse me, bubbles with liquid in it. You got bubbles with air, and you got some two-phase inclusions where you got liquid and water and gas. Sometimes you got three phases where you got water, you got a liquid, you got gas, and you got a solid in there. You got fractures, fingerprints. Literally, there are different inclusions that look like fingerprints. These are identifying markers that define an emerald, and yet when we look at emeralds, we don't look at any of those things. This is a treated emerald. This is 99% of emeralds are treated. 99. If you have an emerald that looks like this, almost guaranteed, unless you paid serious money for it. And believe me, if you knew, if you would know if it was a natural emerald and it looked like that, you would know. Because you would pay a premium price for that, especially if it's any size. Emeralds are treated gemstones. All gemstones are treated, but emeralds, not all emeralds are treated. One of the first processes that they invented to make synthetic gemstones, emerald was one of the first ones. So not only are emeralds treated, but there are a whole bunch of emeralds that are synthetic. And the way you tell the difference is the inclusions, is the type of inclusions in it. That's how you tell the difference between a green tourmaline or spinel or any of these other gemstones that may be green diamond. You can tell from the things that's inside. Yet we don't regard those things. Those things don't take away the value, but yet in people, it does. This is an emerald. You can see the inclusions. You can see the chip. The irregular chip. You can see all the different phases. There's a gas phase. Inclusion right here. Mineral inclusion right there. This is emerald. These are emerald. This is the treated emerald. And it was worse than this. This is still a beautiful gemstone, but you can see the jardin. You can see it. If I, as a gemologist, if I'm taking a loop and looking at this gemstone, looking at this emerald with my loop, I'm going to see that and know. Not only am I going to know that it was treated, but I'm going to know how much of the treatment took away. How did it look before they treated it? Because there's telltale signs you can see on a macro or microscopic level, but you as the consumer can't tell. You just see a beautiful gemstone. Look, these are rough emeralds. You can see. Look at all the black dots. Those are inclusions. This is none. Again, here's the dots. Here's the inclusions. This is a beautiful emerald. This emerald would be highly valued because it's an understanding that that's what that's what emeralds do. That's what they look like. You understand. You accept it because of what it is. Imagine that same concept being applied to people. Imagine being accepted for the things that you are different about you, that you are seen still as a person, as a woman, as a man, pick the race, pick the nationality, pick the religion. You're still seen as a person despite whatever you have going on inside of you. Imagine living in that world. an emerald. And what's interesting is another thing that gets me is that not only do we decide that we put a label on an emerald no matter what, there's other choices within the beryl family that do not have those same problems. Yeah, this is a beautiful Bulgari emerald necklace. We don't even need to talk about the price. You already know. You already know. Aquamarine. Aquamarine is a beryl. What makes aquamarine, look at the transparency of this aquamarine. Look at it. Look how beautiful. This is what aquamarine is. Aquamarine is still made up of the same beryllium, aluminum silicate. Same thing. Has the same cleavage. Stability is still fair, hardness, but the toughness is good. The toughness, an aquamarine can withstand more than a beryl, than an emerald. It's still a beryl. It's still in the same family, but because it has the same molecular structure, but it's different. The toughness, it has good toughness. That's why you can do more things with an aquamarine. Aquamarine has iron in it, whereas emerald has chromium. Now you're talking about iron. So think about that. This is a very beautiful, elegant, soft gemstone. It is an aquamarine. It is the color of water. And the thing that gives it its color is iron. It's iron. Yeah, that's what gives aquamarine its color, iron. So think about, in your mind, think about the way we think about iron in our lives. When we think about iron and steel, and I'm always hearing, which is so totally inaccurate, iron sharpens iron and things of this, which it doesn't. But anyhow, but that's the way we perceive iron. And yet, and another thing about, hold on, so that's how we perceive iron as this hard thing, but yet this is what aquamarine looks like. It doesn't look like it has iron as something that gives it its color. It doesn't look like that at all. Yeah. That's iron. And the thing about aquamarine, as you can see, it has, and even though it's a beryl, it has very few inclusions. Very few. Almost no inclusions. Look how clear it is. Look at that. Look at the difference. Compare the difference of the emerald to what an aquamarine is. So why is an aquamarine have less value? Why does it have less value despite being the same molecular structure, being the same thing as why does it have less value? Because it has iron in it and it doesn't have as many inclusions, you can do more things with an aquamarine. You can create more shapes with an aquamarine. You can create more facets and do different designs because of what aquamarine is. It's a beryl, but it has one element different than what an emerald has. Make that extrapolation for yourself. Especially those of you who have brothers and sisters. How different are they? You grew up in the same house, possibly the same mother and father. Somebody was the same. Same father, same mother and father, whatever. And yet you're totally different. Look at the transparency of that. Look how beautiful, just like water. And it's iron that causes that. Iron. Yeah. Look at the different shapes. Look at the way it radiates. Look at how it manifests the color. Then we have heliodor. Heliodor is the yellow variety of emerald. You have a yellow Heliodor, and you have a golden Heliodor. And the thing that makes Heliodor have that color, believe it or not, it has the same molecular structure, the same characteristics, ferrostability, hardness is the same. The toughness is good. Emeralds was poor, remember, poor, very brittle. But a aquamarine Heliodor, tough. It's iron. The same iron that made aquamarine blue. If you put iron in that same molecular structure of beryllium, aluminum silicate in a different pattern, it creates a yellow color. It interacts with the light in a different way. How is that any different than us? I grew up in the hood. I was in 7 gangs when I was a kid. 7. Never went to a gang fight because you know why? Because I was more afraid of my mother than I was of any gang. I have friends, we all have, who grew up in those situations in the hood or the inner city. Many of us made it. Some of us made it, and some of us have brothers and sisters and cousins and uncles who had spent years in jail or no longer with us, or drugs or alcohol. It's the thing that's inside that my mother instilled in me that made me who I am today. What you see is the manifestation of what my mother put inside of me. And those of you who have been watching my show for the past 3 years know that my whole attitude about my mother really has changed, because it's not that she had the challenges that she had with alcohol. It's not that, or I don't remember the things she did. I just now understand that it was the things that she put inside of me that made me who I am today. So I appreciate her more now at 63 than I ever did in my whole entire life. Because I understand if that process takes place with gemstones, it has to be the same thing for people, because we're still dealing with the same periodic table. This is Heliodor. Heliodor is that color because of iron. Same iron that made aquamarine makes Heliodor yellow. The same, you can send 2 people to the same school in different neighborhoods, and that will manifest in them in a different way. Same difference. The similarities are just unbelievable to me. The analogies are I can do this all forever, because every gemstone is just like this. Here's morganite. Morganite is the pink variety of beryl. Pink. Now, we said emerald. The element is chromium. We said aquamarine and Heliodor. The thing that makes those gemstones, the color is iron. With morganite, same everything. Toughness is good. Totally different stone. Look at the color. It's a beryl. Thing that makes morganite pink is manganese. And when I say, when you put it, I'm talking about trace amounts. I'm talking about for every 1,000 molecules of beryllium aluminum silicate, you might have 2 molecules of magnesium. And depending on where it is in the structure, when light hits it, it changes the wavelength. It separates the wavelengths in such a way that it creates that color. How's that any different than you? This is manganese. This is manganese. 1 atom over, 1 proton over than chromium. 1. There you go. That's morganite. So you had a situation where you had beryllium, which is rare. You had aluminum, not so rare, but still. You had silicate, sand, and you just happen to be in an environment where there's manganese. And because you were in that environment, you became this. When you understand someone's story, when you understand who they are, when you understand what they're doing, you begin to understand, you begin to ask the question, who are they inside? If you've been through enough relationships, if you've been into a couple of marriages, ask yourself a question. Did you ever ask the question of who, or really think to themselves, who are they inside? Many of us look at that and just go, oh, no, it's okay because, oh, he's beautiful, or he's handsome, or she's beautiful, or, oh, she has this color eyes or hair or whatever. All we looked at is the color. We never looked inside. We never asked the question. We never asked the question. And when you begin to do that, it doesn't make the person wrong. You just wasn't looking for an emerald. You were looking for something green, but you weren't looking for an emerald because you understand that emeralds are brittle. You wanted a more durable gemstone. Think about the power of that. It's right there. Maybe you may have to search a little harder or listen a little bit longer or watch a little bit, but the same process that I have to do as a gemologist to figure out what it is, because there's all these imitations, there's all these synthetics, there's all these treatments. I have to figure out what it is. That's what we have to do. Not only with other people, but with ourselves. That's what we have to do. Here we go. We have to figure out what is it? What is that person? Well, who is that person to us? What is that person doing? Red Bixby, which is also called red beryl. It's a red emerald. Same molecular structure. Red emerald. Same molecular structure. Beryllium, aluminum, silicate. Completely different. Many of you would think that was a ruby or maybe a spinel. It's not. It's a red emerald. Very rare. Only comes in one place in the United States, and I think it's Maine. Yeah. Same difference. Everything is the same. Same structure, same challenges. The toughness is good. Manganese. Again. Manganese again is what makes that beryl, that type of beryl, red. Same manganese. I mean, so you gotta see it's if it works like that in nature, in the universe. We're not talking about an American thing, a Russian thing, a Ukrainian thing. We're talking about a universal thing. Go home and look at your kids' periodic table in their books if you have children. Look it up. It don't say periodic table just for humans or periodic table for things. It says the periodic table of elements. Very few inclusions. There it is. Same cut. You would not get that cut with an emerald because it has inclusions in it. Same thing. But yet we value an emerald because someone told us a story once upon a time that emeralds, oh my God, because it's green. Oh. But what if you can get the same things in just a different color? It's different. This is a red beryl. Then you have what's called goshenite. You know what goshenite? You know what happens when you take beryllium, aluminum, silicate, and you don't put anything in it? There you go. You get goshenite. That is a transparent beryl. And because it has no inclusion, no inclusion whatsoever, it is pure. Goshenite is the purest form of a beryl. That's it. That's the way it looks in nature. Nothing. 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 Let me go back. No inclusions. No inclusions. There you go. Nothing. There's no inclusions. That is a beryl. So think about maybe something that if you give a label, if you labeled an emerald is the ultimate gemstone, you're missing out on a whole lot of other gemstones that's within the same family, but it just may have a different color. And because of the things or the lack thereof of things inside of it, it's a tougher gemstone. The durability is better. How many of us picked mates or business partners because of the way they looked or the way they seemed on the outside? And we said, oh my God, he's so, or she girl, boy, she is so fine. Okay. And no inclusions, none. Pure. But nobody ever really talks about, oh, I got a Goshenite ring. Why? Because we're so stuck on the color. Imagine living in a world where we moved beyond that. Imagine being accepted for not only who you are, but you're accepted for who you are because people know who you are. They know what you've done. They know what you're made out of. Imagine living in that world. Goshenite. So what I want you to get out of this, as I want you to get out of every week, every gemstone, nothing has value without a story. And I invite you to send me a comment, send me an email. If you can think of anything that you can tell me in your life that has value, and then then the question I'm going to ask is, what is the story? It automatically comes. It automatically comes. Aquamarine. That is the gemstone for March. And what I'm saying to you is, if you are in the market for a beryl and you're not necessarily sold on green, there's other options. There's other places that you can go to have that same quality or even better, if you don't become stuck on just one attribute that makes it a gemstone. And that's what this is about. That's what the Gem Hunter, Gemmological Appraisals and Storytelling Service is about. Art, science, history, magic. Because what I want you to do is discover the value of your own story. So take the time. Your homework assignment today is to take the time to think about what makes you valuable. If you were a gemstone, not only what kind of gemstone would you be, but what is it about you that's rare? What is it about you that is beautiful? And again, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. You don't need everybody to think you're beautiful. Everybody doesn't like aquamarine. Everybody doesn't like emeralds. Everybody doesn't like rubies, sapphires. You name it. Somebody doesn't like it. But there's somebody who does. You know you're rare because there's no one like you. You know that there's somebody in the world. It may just be your mama. Think of that old song, "Nobody Loves Me But My Mama," and she could be jiving too. It's like that. Are you durable? Are you durable? Is that person that you with in your life, is that person durable? Or are they an emerald where they just look beautiful, but you don't want to put them in a setting where it's open because they're going to break. They will fracture. And when you understand what that person is, then ask yourself, in a relationship that you've been in, is that person still desirable to you? Doesn't mean, and if they're not, you don't have to break them down. You don't have to break them down, because they're a gemstone for someone else, just not for you. And again, I can do this every week forever. But I always want to, when I do this show, I really take the time to look at just the gemmological aspects of it and see if it fits, see how we can look at things, look at value in a different way. And sometimes it's difficult not to get into politics or just different opinions. I just want to look at the gemstone just as it, and then ask you and ask myself, how can we relate those same characteristics, those same traits, those same values that we give to gemstones? How can we relate that to ourselves? How can that information empower us in our day to day? Because I truly believe once you discover the value of your own story, the things that you've gone through, the things that you've overcome, the things that made you stronger and better, then you will see the type of gemstone you are. And those are the things that you will remind yourself as you go through your life. I think of an emerald, if an aquamarine or heliodor or morganite or goshenite was a living organism where they can speak and talk, I don't think they would ever be jealous of an emerald, because they know that emerald is their sister. They're within the same family, but they would understand that an emerald is different. Not better, it's not worse, it's just different. And the label that we put on an emerald doesn't exist in the gemstone world, because labels don't mean anything when you're a gemstone. A heliodor knows what it is. A morganite knows what it is. A red beryl understands. Goshenite understands its purity, whether you know it or not. So I hope you enjoyed today. I hope you got something out of it. Again, my name is Barry B. Mixon. I am a gemmological storyteller. And what I want you to do each and every week is take time to discover the value of your own story. So until next week, apita, au revoir. Enjoy your day.